I'd like to call the meeting to order, and the first order of business is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you can take the hats off, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everyone this evening, and I will hear a motion for the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That motion passes. And we have 3 signed up for public comment. Lonnie? Hiding in the back. Hello.
Hi, Bonnie Blair. So your acceptance of the ESSER money from the government came with a heavy price and unlawful strings attached. And over the past several years, almost several years now, our kids have become a dollar sign rather than children. Parents' rights have been out the window, long gone. You've unlawfully made medical and social emotional choices for my children, resulting in exacerbation of asthma attacks, anxiety, exacerbation of PTSD, mental emotional suffering, just to name a few. You've required medical devices, i.e. masks, to be used on my children. This is against our religious beliefs. Your actions have caused mental, emotional, and physical harm, carbon dioxide poisoning, lack of concentration, lack of focus, headaches, emotional shaming, intimidation, lack of oxygen, confusion, and emotional trauma, and coercion, to name a few. You've made my children suffer loss of education, fresh air, freedom to attend school and play with classmates, and have companionship. I have a letter of intent here, and these are my demands. Number 1, you'll stop COVID propaganda or provide proof of SARS-CoV-19 isolated sample. Isolated meaning it has been taken away from all other genetic material. Number 2, stop all track and trace on my children in the LPOSD schools. And number 3, you'll stop all coercion of children and families to get the experimental COVID jab. Number 4, you will make a public apology to all children and families in the LPOSD school district for coercion to wear masks. Number 5, you will put in writing for the record that you will never make any kind of medical decisions for our children again. This includes masking our children. This also goes against our religious beliefs. Number 6, you will return the cost of curriculum I've had to purchase due to your unsafe and abusive schools and closure of the schools. We don't have access to the internet where we live. So getting on the computer was not an option for us, and periodically going to the schools and picking up a paper or two for my kids to do at home was completely insufficient. The estimated cost thus far is $800, and you can refer to the attached here. And so now I'll be serving each one of you. Tom Albertson, consider yourself served. Geraldine Lewis, consider yourself served.
Thank you.
Lonnie Williams, consider yourself served. And Shirley Gecker, consider yourself served. Thank you.
And our second is Barbara Schreiber.
Recently, the College Boards have announced that schools that fail to teach topics outlined by the AP program could lose the AP designation for those classes. AP courses are key components for the college application and admission process, and many students take these courses to get a head start in college and show college admissions that they are prepared for the rigors of higher education. The College Board statement reads, AP students are expected to analyze different perspectives from their own, and no points of an AP exam are awarded for agreement with a viewpoint. AP students are not required to feel certain ways about themselves or the course content. AP courses instead develop students' abilities to assess the credibility of sources, draw conclusions, and make up their own minds. That last sentence is a brief description of what education is for, and frankly, it is what we should expect from ourselves and from everyone else. We should not be sanitizing what kids learn in school. We should be helping them understand the things they see in the world around them. Our kids are coming at an age when monumental time in the short history of the United States. I hope they're talking about these historic events in school, because I guarantee their children will be learning about this time in their history classes. And like I asked my parents about growing up during the Vietnam War and Civil Rights era, my grandchildren will ask their parents about COVID-19, President Trump, Ukraine, etc. I believe the world today is a challenge to be a good parent. On a daily basis, the outside world exposes children to immorality, violence, hatred, etc. As a parent, I discuss these topics with my kid and oftentimes find I can't explain the why. Just last night, I had to talk to my boys about locally disseminated white nationalist flyers, what white nationalism means, how to protect themselves and their friends of color, and how to respond to others' racist comments. We talk about gun safety weekly, we talk about respect for others and empathy daily. Interestingly, they didn't know who the KKK was or what white nationalism was, so anyone saying they're taught that in school, apparently not. At home. Generally, it is my job as a parent to help guide my boys through the minefield of adolescence and to help them make sense of the world around them. The last thing I'm worried about is what they may be exposed to in school, by a book, or from an educator. The nightly news can be much more dehumanizing. The reason I wrote this today is because of House Bill 666, which the House did pass yesterday and will go on. And I just wanted to say thank you. I am so proud of the schools. I'm so proud of the teachers. My kids really love the schools, and I love that I can be in this community and run into their teachers, and my kids can run into their teachers and work with past teachers. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. And we have a third, Geraldine Meyer.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Meyer, and I just have a couple things happening, and I want you all to know about it. The Higher Ed Tour was today at Sandpoint High School. They're going to Clark Fork tomorrow. We appreciate that. It's where all the Idaho colleges, technical colleges, community colleges talk about all the different programs, trade, tech, community 4-year. And it's just a great opportunity for our students to get exposed to. We had one from College of Southern Idaho, way down south. I mean, it's just a great way for our students. We're in the middle of registration. We're starting our registration process for our students at the high school. But the exciting thing, and I just wanted to thank Mr. Albertson and Lisa Halls for supporting the Construction Combine. It's an event that's happening March 21st, 22nd at the fairgrounds, where we have students from Clark Fork, LPO, and Sandpoint High School. They will be building garden sheds with help with local contractors, and then the garden sheds are given, we're building 4, and they'll be given away to local veterans at the end of the day. And it is a huge community support, but I really appreciate you two, especially getting the insurance liability waiver worked out. So wanted to go on record for that, and it's a great opportunity for our students, and we've had great support from the community, so thank you.
I will take a motion to approve consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion passes. We have a request for off-site prom from Clark Fork. Are there representatives here to speak to us? Hello, gentlemen.
We're here representing Clark Fork's junior class and the request to hold prom at an off-site location.
My name's Antonio.
I am Nathan.
Welcome.
We would like to request to hold it at Dover Barn. Dover, yep. The price we've settled on is $500 because it will be one of the last events that they're going to hold there before they shut it down.
Oh, yeah.
We're expecting around 70 people and about half that in vehicles.
We have like 35, 40 cars expected, and we have around 7 expected chaperones. And there'll be a restricted area, so all students can be monitored.
Is there any questions you guys have?
I have one question. Have you guys held it at Dover Barn before?
No, it'll be a first.
Okay.
Okay.
The Beyond Hope class?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any other questions for these two? Pearlie, did you teach either of them?
I did not teach
Oh.
them. They're too young.
Oh, okay. Okay. If we don't have other questions for them, I'll hear a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the request for off-site prom at Dover Barn for the Clark Fork Junior class.
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
None
You bet.
opposed, that motion passes. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Have fun. Be safe.
Be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drive safe. Don't make bad decisions.
That was free advice.
Yeah.
From Trustee Williams. We have an alternate authorization teacher to new for Lindsay Murray. Is there,
I'll address that.
okay.
Yeah, so Lindsay Murray is a certified teacher, has a valid Washington teaching certificate, and now has a valid Idaho teaching certificate. But part of her day is in the early childhood program at Farm and Stidwell. So that requires a separate endorsement. So what this is asking for for Lindsay to be working on that endorsement to get early childhood added to her already Washington and Idaho certificate. So,
Okay.
All right. You want to?
Yep, I'll hear a motion for this.
I move to approve the alternate authorization for Lindsay Murray.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion or questions for Superintendent? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That motion passes. Thanks. We have two school presentations, and the first we'll hear from is from where am I? Washington. Hello.
Hi.
Principal Asha Hamer.
Sorry. Please take a second.
No worries.
I got to go to Washington last week for student-led conferences.
Nice. I'm going to pass that back to you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the board for your dedication to students and staff in our district and unfortunate and principal Washington Elementary. I am keeping this to 12 minutes. I timed it, so Jeff can give me the buzzer. But I have so many wonderful things to share about Washington, but I'll start out with what makes Washington unique. So Washington staff is wonderful. They're dedicated, supportive, innovative, collaborative. They really kind of take the idea of all of the kids or all of our kids, and we work together. We have a positive school culture, and I define that by the trust that's built between staff, the professional support that teachers have, and the overall desire and learn to grow together that we have as a staff. Another wonderful thing about Washington Elementary is we have a very, very supportive PTA, and the list goes on of what PTA does for our school. Fundraise, buys equipment for kids, the end of the school, field day, booster-thon. I mean, we are so lucky. Not only do they support all sorts of fun things that kids look forward to, but they support teacher grants, I think 4 times a year. So our vice president's in the audience right now. We are a neighborhood school, so located in the middle of South Sandpoint, and it really feels like a neighborhood school. So parents are having coffee outside the playground in the morning, talking to each other, walking their kids to school. After school, there's lots of families hanging out and playing in it's just wonderful. Everybody looks after the kids, and neighbors are on them at night, you know, telling kids it's time to go home, or it's just wonderful. We all take care of each other. Washington has a very strong parent involvement, and I could say that you could probably enter the building now on any given day and there will be a parent in at least 4 or 5 classrooms supporting student learning. And this year, we have implemented outdoor education, and I will explain that in a later slide. This year at Washington Elementary, we really wanted to up the student engagement and connection piece school-wide. And we have seen an overall decrease in discipline this year, even compared to last year. And last year was the lowest we ever had because kids were with their teacher all day long in our yellow plan. And I attribute that to 2 things. So we are a PBIS school, which lots of schools in the district are, but it's positive behavioral intervention and supports. Basically, we teach kids what we like, the routines and procedures and how we navigate the school, and teach it so it's very, very clear, and then are very positive and congratulate them for following the routines and procedures. Another thing that we implemented this year that is just wonderful and builds connections school-wide is a morning meeting. So here are 2 pictures of a morning meeting. And kids either sit or stand in a circle, or you can see these pumpkins didn't want to sit on the floor, so they're sitting and involved in the meeting on a chair. But it's a 4-part meeting, and it starts out with a greeting. So I would say good morning to Kelly, and Kelly would say good morning to me, and then Kelly would turn to Tom, and they go around in circle, and everybody says good morning back and forth to each other. Then the second part of morning meeting is sharing, and it's really fun to go to the primary grades and hear sharing. But even 5th and 6th grade, students can share or not share, and it's anything they want to share. It could be about what they did last night, what they ate for breakfast, just a sharing time. And then a lot of times it leads itself into an activity, and teachers are usually doing something with math, some math facts, a quick game, a circle game. And then the morning meeting, the 4th part is for the teacher just to outline the day. Like, this is what we're doing today, this is the specials you have. And then we end morning meeting with, we have a video news broadcast called the Cougar Connection that the 5th grade runs. And we watch the Cougar Connection and start our day. It's wonderful. I would come join, you should come join us for one. I think Tanya has, and she's there too. Next, I want to highlight the engaging specials we have at Washington Elementary. So last year we kind of toe dipped with outdoor ed, and this year we have implemented outdoor education at Washington Elementary. So what we did is, prior we had computer lab, but all kids have one-to-one in the classroom, so that need to go to the computer lab to type a paper or to do research is right there in their hands in the classroom. So we have implemented outdoor ed, and you can see some of these pictures. So we lost our tent. We had an outdoor ed tent due to heavy snowfall. So the kids shoveled the field and built a big mound of snow. And then Mr. Dewey, the outdoor ed teacher, hollowed it out and made an igloo. And for about a week and a half, they learned Inuit games. Here you can see they are, with approval from the district, they are making primitive tools. So that's a piece of wood, and they had coals, not open flames, and they were burning the wood down and making their own bowls and their own spoons, but one bowl for one class. Gotta manage that. And they did a bike unit and learned how to repair bikes, and kids were pushing bikes to school that were broken down and patching tires, and it's just a really engaging, special part of the kids' week. And And then this last picture is a picture of some stuff, some art that happened in our library. So we have a librarian, and I'm sure Lonnie and Tanya have kids that go to our school have heard of Miss Myra. So Miss Myra is our librarian, and she is incredibly creative and understands kids at each level and has implemented activities that are really engaging in the library. Kids are, they're doing units on the ocean. They just did a Chinese unit, and they're doing story circles with movement in song and K1. I could go on and on about what's happening in the library, but kids don't want to miss Outdoor Ed Day, and kids do not want to miss Library Day. So, and that just builds to that connection and community piece of Washington Elementary. Piggybacking on our staff, so we have a wonderful staff. Every week we meet as a PLC, and I know you guys have heard a lot about PLC, so I just outlined the 4 questions that we work under, but basically we look at what do we want kids to know, how do we know if they know it, what are we going to do to extend kids that need that extension, and then how do we help kids that need help for interventions. And I really feel like everything we do at Washington Elementary, or it is under that umbrella. So currently staff is doing a book study together that supports their PLC work. We worked as a staff to implement morning meeting. Our staff works under the 7 elements of effective instruction. So when they plan, it's under, this is how a lesson goes in a classroom at Washington Elementary. We have a really strong MTSS system, which we meet with teachers each grade level every 4 weeks and take a look at data and make data-based decisions on what kids need. Our PBIS system is very strong. Right now we are using an online program called IXL to really target our low math data strands. And just we work collectively under the idea of making decisions based on data. So I'm going to show you a little bit of our growth or our winter data that we're pretty proud of. So green means good. This is where we want kids in the green. And that's our benchmark. Yellow is where we have strategic, and then red is intensive. So in September, if you look at the top graph, 67% of our kids score benchmark where we want them. And as of January, we're at 80%. So we're really happy with that growth between September and January. And this is grades kindergarten through 3rd. And then down here is the comparative of Washington to the state and the district. And Washington's at that 80, 11, so 80 green, 11, and then 10. And then the state level is 62% proficient, 20 and 18. So we're pretty happy with our winter data, which it's a lot of the work that we're doing as a PLC weekly. And then kids, this represents our 3rd through 6th grade learners right now. But in the winter time, they take a math assessment. I know you've heard of the math assessment. And this is our projected proficiency on the ISAT. And so for ELA, we are at 68.8% projected proficiency on the ISAT. And that might not sound really great to you, but we're pretty happy with that, because last year it was at 63% and the state's at 54%. So we would like to get to 75%, but right now, based on our midwinter data, we're at a 68.8%. Math's a little bit lower, and that's why we've been really targeting math school-wide. We're at 57.9% projected proficiency, and the state level last year on ISAT, I think it's 3 through 12th was 39%. So we're happy with that, but we want to bump it up. And we have some strategies to support it. So PLCs, the IXL to really target those math standard-based grading, that MTSS process with interventions and extensions school-wide. And as a team, as a whole school this year, we really focused on that. And teachers have to write student growth goals. And we wrote a student growth goal school-wide, K through 6, on a math data strand. So it's tied to teachers' overall evaluation. So we're excited to see what our spring data looks like, which is coming up really soon. Thank you for giving me the time to tell you how wonderful Washington Elementary is. And do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions? Can you remind the board how what your student population is?
Oh, I was going to tell you, where we're at right now, we're at 307. So 2 classes per grade, K-6.
Mm-hmm. Are there other questions? Great work,
Thank
and
you.
it is so rewarding to hear from each school because we get such a sense of the character of each school, and every school who comes to us just feels so different.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Joshua.
Good work. So we have Principal Jeff Penrose is presenting here for Lake Pondere Alternative High School. Hello.
Hello. That was 12 minutes exactly.
She said she.
Board members, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight about LPO. When I asked Kelly what the expectations were for this presentation to the board this year, she replied that you guys want to know what makes LPO unique. And I could also share some data if I wanted. So I really like data, but I'd like to focus on some data that really demonstrates what is different about LPO. And also like to hear some student voices. Academically, our data indicates that we are still struggling to recover from COVID. COVID hit our population really hard, and we really struggled with the remote learning. We struggled a little extra because we were already running the 4x4 that Sandpoint High does now. So that means we shut down in third quarter, at the last week of third quarter, and the state mandate was no student can drop below the grade they were when we went to remote learning.
Right.
But our classes all ended a week later, and we started all new classes, that fourth quarter classes, a week later, so all kids were at 0.
Yeah.
So we had 78% Fs that quarter. It was brutal, it was rough, and it affected our graduation rate, because many of those seniors needed those 4 last classes to get there, and they just we lost a lot of them. So our graduation rate has dipped below where it was. We were pretty proud of it for a while. We were in the top 3 in the state for a few years there for alternative schools. It has dropped below 70% in most recent data, but we're going to get back there, and we're still in the upper quatile for an alternative school in the state, but that's not good enough for us. We're going to get back to the top 3 pretty soon. Our math data is still strong. Again, pre-COVID, we were strongly in the 90th percentile for the conditional growth index. Consistently, year after year, we've been administrating the math for 10 years now, and we have a lot of data that shows that our kids grow more than a year for a year's worth of schooling, almost without exception. But we're down into the 76th, 80th percentile now. So we're still recovering from COVID, but we'll get there. But we know that the way to do that is to pay a lot of attention to the affective building, because our students come to us at a deficit almost always, emotionally, social-emotionally, academically. In some way they come to us and they need something extra. They choose to come to us, and we choose to all be there because that's where we want to work with that population. Everything we do is based in, grounded in a strong staff-student relationship, in a trauma-informed PBIS climate. And we believe we're fairly unique in our excellence in this area. We've received a lot of training in trauma-informed practices. We have a ton of experience with it. Our teachers, boy, we have a solid core of teachers. I think my shortest tenured teacher is 3 years now already. I mean, so we've staff that really is getting good at this. We also have sets of data that shows that we're really good at it. And I want to share just one set with you. This is the student feedback to teacher data that we have been collecting since 2019. We've been asking the same 18 questions to students 1,842 times now. So it's a robust end, as we might say. And I just want to show you what the aggregate. You can take one and pass them around. So what this survey does is there's this 18 statements ranging from I feel the teacher in this class truly cares about me, I feel like I talk to my teacher, things like my teacher considers my ideas and suggestions, I tried my hardest in this class, the grade I earned in this class represents my ability in this subject, but I want to draw, and the data pretty much speak for themselves. I think that's a pretty impressive set of data, but I'd like to draw your attention to that first one. 92.78% of 1,842 respondents approved positively to the statement, I feel the teacher in this class truly cares about me. That's an amazing number. When you think about it, you show me a school where 93% of the students say the teacher in front of me right now truly cares about me, and I'm going to show you a school on the way up. I'm going to show you LPO. It's a pretty amazing set of data, including also such things as 96% of the students say my teacher appears to be prepared to teach every day. That's always a good one, but that's our highest number. Students saying, yeah, my teacher knows what they're doing. That's awesome. But also 94% say in this class we learn to correct our mistakes. We really emphasize that in life and in academics. Correcting mistakes is a huge part of learning. So we like to show off this set of data, and we will continue to take it. We'll take it every quarter, and hopefully we'll continue these trends. But the data only shows part of the picture. I was disappointed we would not be able to bring students to speak to you in person tonight. While I understand the why, I also know that that is a really important time for our school, that you can put faces to these, do these numbers. It's always great to bring kids to speak directly to your folks. And so what I thought I'd do is I'd just pick up my phone and go around the school and ask students that question. What makes LPOHS unique? And so we have a video for you that came out of that. We threw in a couple other things for filler. But I think without pointing you in any specific direction, I know that who spends a lot of time with these kids, was surprised at both the uniformity and the sincerity of the answers they give you. These are 100% uncoached. I mean, I really just pulled kids and asked them a question. You can even hear me asking the question. But I think this will give you a good flavor of the heart of this school. Kelly, would you? Go ahead. What makes LPOHS unique?
I'd say the sense of community.
Because it's a giant family and they're willing to help you.
Is that everyone here is a family and we all treat each other like a family, and that's what I love about being here every day.
Awesome. Thanks. So Josie, you've been here, what, 2 years?
Yeah, about almost there.
What makes LPOHS unique?
I think to me that the teachers care about you, and it's a very personable school, and that everyone wants the best for you, no matter what path you are at in life.
Great. What are you going to do after high school?
I'm going to Vermilion Community College in Ely, Minnesota to study water quality and watershed science.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Hey Justin, you've been here for 3 years now? 3 years. Why is LPO unique?
To me, I feel LPO is unique because just the teachers and all the staff are just right on board with helping each student become their full potential and do their best in their life and set them up for a good, successful life.
Thank you. So Tallulah, you've been at LPO this is your second year?
Yeah.
And what makes LPOHS unique?
What I really like is the teachers, they talk to you like a normal person, like a human, and don't really judge you based off of a single action. They let you earn their respect, and they show you that they deserve your respect as well, which is a really important thing. not just being here, and we do appreciate teachers that show up, but also being ready to showing up with a good attitude, being ready to teach every day, which I really appreciate.
Awesome, thank you. And what are you going to do after you graduate?
I'm thinking about pursuing more schooling, trying to get more knowledge, more experience, and then hopefully going on to a career in science.
Cool, thank you. Dylan Greer, what makes LPOHS unique?
The teachers, they actually care. They're here for the children, not a paycheck.
What makes LPOHS unique?
The people in it,
How so?
they're just all different and really cool.
LPO is awesome because the teachers aren't just teachers, but they're like your family. You can talk to them about stuff that like you just wouldn't be able to talk to them as a teacher.
What makes LPOHS unique?
Like, just some of the teachers are pretty cool, you know?
Some good art.
That is a student, that's an name.
Yeah, that is. Wow, that looks cool.
I think LPO is unique because we have a homeroom and that kind of makes us a little more connected.
LPO unique is that the teachers actually try to get to know their students and build a relationship with them on a personal level instead of just being a teacher.
Good, is that working for you?
Yes.
I really like the teachers and Lukey, he's my favorite, and the lunch lady's super nice, and I love the teachers, and that's all, and Chase.
Chase, what makes LPOHS unique?
That's a good question, Geoff. Probably the community is built around.
So Nick, this is your first year at LPO, right? Yeah. And what makes LPOHS unique?
It's less of a school, more like a place of comfort. And the teachers, the staff here, they care for you. They want to know who you are. They want to know what helps you learn. And they're not here for a paycheck. They're here for the students and for our education.
Great, thanks. And what are you going to do after you graduate?
I want to go to college for sociology, psychology, or anything along those lines.
Cool, thank you.
So you can see from that there's a theme, and I really expected to hear all kinds of things. I thought at least one of them would say, "You're a no homework school," because we hear that a lot when kids come in, and I first sit down with every single student and I say, "Why do you want to come to LPO?" And they say, "Well, I hear there's not any homework." And so you come in, and that's often what they say. And we are a no homework school. This battle we choose not to fight. If we assign an essay, we give you time, space, and support in the classroom to write that essay. But not a single one of them, after being there a little while, thinks that's why they're at LPO anymore. They're there because they made that connection with the staff. And I'd say that's what makes LPO unique. I know that every other school makes great connections with their students. We are working 100% with students who have already been disaffected somehow, and it's already been separated from their education in some way. The fact that we have 93% of them saying that we know that the school cares about me is amazing to me, and I think that's entirely attributed to the amazing adults with whom I work. They really do an amazing job, and do it every day under some very difficult conditions lately, and I hope you'll stop by and feel that yourself sometime soon. All right? Thank you. Any questions?
No, talk about giving us a real sense of the character and family that is at LPOHS, and we've been calling you Jeff this whole time. I'm sorry.
So there's a teacher Jeff, and so just to
You're
avoid
Geoff.
my name's spelled G-E-O-F.
I know.
And so when I was in 6th grade, I really got upset when people called me Geoff. But now it's pretty much universal.
It's gotten to be
in my school.
your nickname.
Yeah, it's Geoff. Pretty much any of the kids.
That
I've
is
actually
too
had
funny.
kids be there a while and say, "Oh, your name's Jeff." So I've grown into it.
That's
part of my personal growth. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there other questions for?
You had said that many, that a percent left and did not, that they had left. Did any of those students come back the next year to finish?
A few did. We worked really hard. We exercised those personal connections and said, come on, just come back and try, you can do it. I mean, we had a couple who were only 3 credits away. But in that period, they went out and started lives. They got jobs, things happened, and next thing you know, high school seemed a long ways away. So we pulled back, I think, I don't know the number off the top of my head, we got about 1/3 of them back. But that really hurt our cohort is so small that really impacted our graduation rate. So we had peaked out above 70, which is amazing for an alternative school in the state. I mean, most of them, the average I think is 33% around for the state for alternative schools. So we were way up there. We went all the way down. I believe we settled out around 60 this year, the most recent reporting. But we'll get back up there. We're still dealing with kids who are coming to us new this year, new kids to us, who haven't been in school for 1.5 years or 2 years. And so trying to get them graduated on time is going to be very, very hard. But we try every day. It's all we can do. And we don't get hung up on the numbers, but we don't also like to get bashed for the numbers. You know, that we don't like that when, so we try to get them as high as we can reasonably. And we're pretty proud of that 70+% that we were at for a while. We'll get back there.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. So with that, we're going to move into a financial update from our Chief Finance and Operational Officer, Lisa Halls. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Welcome.
Thank you.
If you need a moment to settle to the
Okay.
stand up and stretch.
A lot of it's very new information.
Is the woman in the front?
Thank you, Megan. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
So the print on the screen is going to be small, so this is hopefully
Okay.
Thanks for letting me settle in. Good evening. So this evening I'm going to give an overview that's going to cover 3 items. The first will be our financial position at the end of fiscal year 21, so as of June 30th, 2021, and that'll kind of serve as a platform for the two other items. The second is I'm going to try to give a revenue projection for fiscal year 23. So that covers the period July 1st, 2022 to June 30th of 2023. And I would highlight that that's based on the currently known facts as of 5:45 p.m. on March 8th. And that's important, not so much on the federal side, but very much on the state side, as the legislative session is in full tilt, and there are some still big variables that affect K-12 funding for fiscal year 23. And then the board can expect at the April board meeting for administration to come before you with our recommendations on the expenditure side for the fiscal year 23 budget, and then to come back with you pending whatever revisions or questions you have as an outcome of the April meeting. And then ultimately, the budget for fiscal year 23 will be adopted in the June meeting. That's required by statute that it's adopted by June 30th of 2022, or any fiscal year. Then the third thing I'm going to discuss is to try to give you just a general multi-year forecast on our district's financial future. I don't normally do this, and it's going to be high level, but with the infusion of both federal COVID relief money at the state level and then directly to school districts in the country, and then that conflated with some potential real changes in the funding formula for fiscal year 23. I think it's salient, and I'd like particularly the new board members kind of start from one fiscal year and move forward so that they have an idea of our overall position, in my opinion, going forward. I am going to also, because potentially maybe some superintendent applicants might be listening to this online, say some of the numbers out loud, as they are obviously not going to be able to see the screen. So this first slide is from our audit report for fiscal year 21, so as of June 30th, 2021. And this is a summary statement, and what's important to see on this page here is what's called fund balance. Fund balance are basically the cash on hand in our general fund. That's the major operational fund. Our budget this year is about $46 million, and our general fund is about $35 million. And what it shows is from fiscal year 20, the reserves on hand were $6.2 million, and then they subsequently increased to $8.7 million. So when we started fiscal year 21, one way that reserves are expressed in governmental accounting is the percentage of revenue. So at the beginning of the year, fiscal year 21, our fund balance was 18.3% of our general fund revenues. Our target, the Governmental Finance Officers Association, so many of those kind of financial organizations like a fund balance of 15%. So 18% is a solid reserve balance. And then I've just shared that we added $2.4 million. So at the end of fiscal year 21, in terms of expressed percentage, we were at 24.3%. I'm in my 19th year here with the school district, and our reserve balance has never reached that level. At the apex of the 2009 Great Recession, there was an infusion of what were called economic stimulus dollars, and at one point for about a month, we had reserves at about 21%. So now this is also coming from the audit report, and in the audit report, We talk about things that happened in the fiscal year that closed, and then factors we think are going to be bearing on the district's future. So I want to highlight, and I'm going to read verbatim, things that, this was written by me in August of 2021, that I wanted to share in terms of factors bearing on our future. So federal ESSER funding is pivotal to the district's future financial position. So ESSER, E-S-S-E-R, there are 3 different packages that have been awarded over a period of, let's see, over a year, starting in March of 2020 and culminating in March of 2021. ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and they flow, the dollars flow to the states, they flow to all sorts of public institutions, and of course to K-12. And I've written that they are not only key to formulating the fiscal year budget we're in, fiscal year 22, but also future budgets. These one-time ESSER funding packages platform our very budget structure through September 30th, 2024. Why that date? Because that's when the ESSER dollars must be fully spent. Also, the district passed in November of 2019 what is called an indefinite term supplemental levy that went into effect 18 months later, July 1st, 2021, the beginning of this fiscal cycle. We formulated, and some board members were on the board then, this ballot measure in August of 2019, so that's not quite 3 years, 2 3/4 years ago, with the specific reason of trying to provide significant stability in our overall district funding. And for many districts in the state, I think there are maybe 45 of them, that today is election day for your supplemental levy. And it feels quite different to now have an indefinite term levy, and we are not in front of the voters this evening with a supplemental levy. And also, in the prior fiscal year, we had a significant drop in our student count, and we projected that it would basically bounce back up to the pre-sort of COVID onset, and we've done that. We've recovered just shy of 400 students this year, and also importantly, last fiscal year, and now reading out loud, currently the governor's office and the State Board of Education are dialoguing on the matter, and the matter is paying school districts, funding school districts on enrollment versus average daily attendance, which is what is in statute. All right, so that's sort of where we closed fiscal year 21. Now I want to give a definition of something that's very important to federal grants for public school districts nationwide. And this is the concept of supplementing versus supplanting. Supplement is to add, extra, enhances something. So prior to ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, all of the federal grants that we've received have a supplement mandate. It must be in addition to, right? It cannot supplant something. What's incredibly unique to ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 is that there is no supplanting restriction. So to supplant means to take place of or to serve as a substitute. All right, now the figures are small, so I'm going to read the important parts of the slides that follow. So this says, at the top in yellow, supplanted from CARES, that's ESSER 1. SRSA, that's ESSER 2. And GEAR, that's the governor-directed COVID relief money in fiscal year, at the end of fiscal year 21. So the opening slide said we increased our fund balance, our reserves by like $2.5 million, and we had an unexpected, unbudgeted infusion of federal dollars directly to the district or via the governor's choice to school districts of $2.6 million. So that's why our fund balance jumped from 18.5% up to, and it's right here, 24.3%. And then if we look at this current fiscal year, and I try to say, well, what is our fund balance going to be at the end of this fiscal year, and how do we budget? So we budgeted on the funding formula, paying school districts on average daily attendance. And average daily attendance in general is about 94% in our district of our student enrollment. And then what's happened since the beginning of the fiscal year that was unanticipated, wasn't budgeted. We've come before you with approval to go out to bid for a roof at the Sandpoint Middle School. That's about $200,000. Again, approval to go out to bid for the Sandpoint High School locker room, unbudgeted, $100,000. And then piece of is the Public Education Stabilization Fund at the state level, and there in statute is a one-time freeze on PSEP, which means prior to fiscal year 22, if the appropriation at the state level for K-12 was insufficient to meet expenditures, they would dip into the reserves, the stabilization fund, basically to make it whole. But at the very last minute, last year, there was a one-year hold on that. We anticipated that that would cost our district, and we wouldn't know that until July 15th of 2022, when all of fiscal year 22 is closed out by the State Department of Education. We thought that would cost our district about $260,000. So that would say, under just kind of those facts, that we would end our fiscal year with a fund balance of $8,143,000, or again, over here on the right, about 21%. But that's not what's going to happen, because some things have changed due to legislative action and appropriations as of January of 2022. So the first thing that happened was that the State Board of Education, for the second consecutive year, put in place what's called a temporary rule to pay school districts on enrollment. For that, that bolsters what's called our unit count, and that's an infusion, an increased and unbudgeted revenue to us of $1,232,000. Then other things, we have ESSER 2, which is SRSA, and ARPA, which is ESSER 3. We are allowed to charge what are called indirect unrestricted costs. We're transferring money out of our federal grant into our major operational fund. The allowance for the dollars we're going to spend this year is $473,000. And we have supplanted, remember, supplanted the definition. We've taken expenditures that are allowable under the ESSER packages out of our general fund and supplanted them, transferred them to ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, almost $2.4 million. So what really is going to happen is at the end of this fiscal year, the balance I project will be about $12,483,000. That's an increase of $4.3 million due to the infusion of federal ESSER dollars and the action by the state board to pay districts on enrollment. So now, at the end of fiscal year 22, in terms of expressed percentage, that's 32%, fully 1/3 of our general fund. All right, now I'm going to transition transition to the state and their budgeting process. There are 4 different revenue projections that go into developing the state's budget in any year. First, by September 1st of every year, every agency budget, and we are the largest agency budget, must give a draft budget request to the state, to the governor's office. So they have to have a revenue projection. So that's Superintendent Ybarra. Next, the Economic Outlook and Revenue Assessment Committee, which is a joint committee between the House and Senate. It's large, it's 22 members. They, in the first week of January, so actually antecedent to the state of the state by the governor, they have 2 full days of testimony, and then they come back a week later with their revenue projection. Sandwiched in that first week in January, the governor gives his state of the state with his revenue projection. And then finally, lastly, the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee, again, joint members of the House and the Senate, a large committee, sets their revenue projection last, and that occurred on February 18th of this year. So it spans from September 1st of 2021 through February 18th of 2022. And because Idaho's economy is so robust and continues to outpace the revenue projections, you will see that the proposed budget from Superintendent Ybarra that was presented to JFAC on January 17th versus the proposed budget for K-12 of Governor Little proposed on January 11th versus the appropriated amounts from JFAC yesterday, March 7th for K-12, they all are increasing in terms of the overall percentage. The line items affected by and large align, but there are some major differences in the dollar amounts. And normally I don't give the 3 different, I just give the JFAC, but sort of the progression is important given sort of the policy planks that are surrounding what's happening to funding for K-12 in Idaho. So Superintendent Ybarra, this is a presentation of the revenues are on the top. Here, things that are statutory, that means they're in statute. You know, they would have to be modified in language to be taken out of statute. Anything non-statutory means it happens every year. You know, at the end of the fiscal year, these expire unless they're reappropriated. And so, in my handwriting here are comparing this fiscal year, what we budgeted to what I expect under these different budget requests, the increased revenues. And the categories that are important are what's called salary-based apportionment. Ybarra had recommended a 5% increase for classified staff, and 3% for certified staff. Governor Little recommended a 5% for, certified administrators, a 5% increase for classified staff and certified administrators. Ybarra recommended following suit in what's called the career ladder, moving what's in statute, all teachers, to another rung on the state's career ladder. Governor Little, because he has access to what are called gear money, the COVID relief governor-directed money, he recommended using some of the third package, ARPA, to actually accelerate paying teachers for what's in statute should be paid for fiscal year 24. So essentially taking a 2-rung statute. So that's the difference in those revenue costs, 438 versus 659,000. However, to offset that, Governor Little recommended eliminating what are called leadership premiums for teachers. So that's a negative 248,000. The other really big line item is a proposal, an initial proposal by Superintendent Yubera to fund partially all-day kindergarten for the more struggling of kindergartners, not every single kindergartner in the state. Governor Little said, no, I don't want it to be specific to kindergarten. I want an infusion of what is already appropriate kind of literacy dollars, and so that's about half of $550,000. And then the really big line item is what's called the unit count. And the unit count, again, is supposed to be a classroom of students, and it is supposed to be, and I'm putting in air quotes, discretionary money spending by the school districts. But it's not discretionary. It is not supplemental. It is absolutely operational money. A couple of years ago, the state decided to bifurcate the unit dollar amount allocation, partially to support health insurance and the rest of it to be non-health insurance. And that will become particularly important because of something that happened in JFAC yesterday. So, Governor Little, again, I said, has access to COVID relief gear money. And he wants to substantially increase the unit allocation so that school districts would have an option to participate in the health insurance plan that are offered to all state employees. And the state, we are the only public agency, and we are not state employees in Lake Connery School District. But if you work for health and welfare, if you work for ITD, you're a state employee. And the per person cost for next fiscal year for health insurance is projected to be $12,500. And so Governor Little said, I want to bolster the unit count discretionary money so that school districts could meet that $12,500 cost if they opt in. One. And two, I want to use $74.5 million of my gear money to set up an account that essentially if a school district wants to go on the state plan, they have to pay like it's a reserve amount. Mm-hmm. Our cost is projected, if we were to do that, and we are not interested, would be $528,000, which we could access now this bill has been passed, our share of that $74.5 million. So there's a really big difference. Your mayor would have increased our budget by $1.2 million. That's kind of, in general, what's happened appropriation-wise in the last several fiscal cycles. Little's would have increased it pretty much because of this, and also because of the literacy, $2.3 million. Big variance. Mm-hmm. All right, this is what happened in JFAC yesterday, and it's only in here to say that what happens, JFAC appropriates all agency budgets. They're still in that process. It's a multi-week process. And here, so the increase is 11.3% from current. Since I've been here, I don't know if you can see the 11. Since I've been here, K-12 has never received an 11.3% increase from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year at the state level.
Was it like 4 something last year?
Yeah, in the high 4s, and the kind of prior ones were in the mid 5s to 6s.
Yeah.
That's the highest it's been, and now we're at 11.3%. But JFAC, now the appropriation bills go to the House and the Senate. They have to pass it, and then it would go to the governor for signature. So this is a quick summary sheet of all the details that's too small for anybody to read. Right? So first I want to just point out that before JFAC sets their revenue target on February 18th. On February 17th, they call all the committee chairs, House and Senate side, to give a summary of their budget requests, because legislative services is actually doing that in the preceding weeks. And every single one of those committees talk directly to JFAC about the interplay of the upcoming fiscal year and the next several fiscal years that the ARPA dollars in sculpting and being a large portion of their budget. So what JFAC's action yesterday included was reopening fiscal year 22, and then also appropriating money for fiscal 23. So in the yellow, yesterday, this year, they've tapped into $37 million more of gear money for fiscal year 22. And they've already tapped into gear money for, I don't know if you remember, there was about 150,000 substitute pay money. There was some additional money for our child nutrition program. That was about 68,000 we've just received. And then there are some large line items in fiscal year 23. I've mentioned already setting up the health insurance reserve account of, I'm sorry, I said 74 million, it's 75.5 million. They're also going to be using $574 million more in COVID relief money. And I've mentioned that Governor Little wanted to accelerate the career ladder, and he's using ARPA dollars to do that, and the ARPA dollar amount is $36.5 billion. So just as Lake Congaree School District, as I shared in the management discussion analysis letter for last fiscal year, this fiscal year, the next fiscal year through September 30th of 2024 is utilizing ESSER dollars. They're like a puzzle, you know. There are state and local dollars, and there are the federal dollars. And even for the major normal operational things, the ESSER dollars are integral to the structure not only of the public school budgets, but all the other agency budgets in the state. So then what JFAC's action yesterday was, the major change was that another joint committee called the Change in Economic Compensation Committee recommended state employees receive a 7% increase in salary. And that is what JFAC is doing, a 7% increase in salary for classified staff and certified administrators, recognizing inflation and the cost of labor. And so the number that I anticipate our state revenue will increase by from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23 is $2.4 million. Now, the hard part.
That was easy.
So I told you about what's called the unit count, and a couple of years ago, they split it to have a health insurance component and then the non-health insurance component. And on the top of the page in yellow, and I'll read it, it says, if the distribution, and they're talking about the unit count, provided for health, vision, and dental insurance is in excess of the individual school district's actual costs, this is the important part, the excess funds may be used at the school district's or charter school discretion. Yesterday's action, which is below, the red, this deletes what's in code, and this is the addition. And again, I'll read it out loud. Health insurance funds for the period July 1st, 22 to June 30th of 23. The appropriation of state funds to the public schools division of operations will result in a total distribution of health insurance related funds of $19,698 per support unit. So this is saying that $698 per support unit must be spent solely on health insurance. Not if you're spending less than that, then you have the discretion to use the dollars otherwise. JFAC did not realize that this was the structure of the intent language. So, our Senator Woodward called me about 6 last night. We had a long conversation, and the options are to reopen the fiscal year 23 JFAC appropriation, which would require 2/3 approval by JFAC members, and add that line back that's been deleted. Additionally, a JFAC member last night went to the Attorney General to ask for an opinion on intent language in an appropriations bill. They expected an answer back, but as of now, still have not heard. And this is not Governor Little's intent of increasing the distribution money, and this would be devastating for every school district in the state, which does not spend $19,000 per an individual on health insurance. So we're going to be positive that the legislative process will work its process, and I'm going to present my revenue projection then for fiscal year 23 as it stood with JFAC, assuming that we are going to be given flexibility on the unit distribution for fiscal year 23. So things that are unknown now for fiscal 23, the federal government's fiscal cycle is not concurrent with our fiscal cycle. The federal government's fiscal cycle is October 1 to September 30th. In fact, the federal government has not adopted their budget for this year. That's not unusual. Many months, they're on continuing resolutions. But there is every indication, so we generally get estimates in appropriation in April, but it will appear that for the non-COVID dollars, that our Title I, our Title II, our Title 6B, that the appropriations will meet at least the level that they are now, and potentially on Title I side, actually a large increase. But there is another big conversation occurring with these federal non-COVID dollars, which are allocated based on poverty levels or what are called free and census poverty data, or what are called free and reduced counts. We have had free meals last year and free meals this year, irrespective of income, through the USDA, which is separate and distinct from U.S. Department of Ed, USAID. And they don't parlay well. It took until early February for finally U.S. Ed to say, because we have not been collecting as school districts free and reduced counts, that the Title I, the Title IIs, we are going to continue to use free and reduced numbers from 2 fiscal years ago, 1920. In lieu of using what's called direct certification, which means if we have a student whose family receives services from health and welfare, they're counted, and then the federal government sets a factor, and the factor presently is 1.6%. And if we had had to use direct certification for these non-COVID federal dollars, for example, Title I, we would have lost like 2/3 of the funding. What is unresolved, also separate and distinct, is the FCC, where we received considerable E-rate communication-related dollars, and the FCC very early on said, you can continue to use the 1920 free and reduced numbers. Then US Ed said, okay, you can use 1920 best number, you know, your best effort to get the poverty numbers. What we don't have is for next year what's going to happen with the USDA, and as of now, it appears that we will go back to charging for breakfast and lunch next year. And when we talk about on the expense side in April, you will see that that has financially a very large impact negatively to us. We're projecting a loss in our child nutrition program of $388,000 in revenue because of reverting back to the free and reduced and potentially having to use these direct certifications. So this says my projection after JFAC and bringing into other projections, saying that we will be paid on enrollment next year. We have a bill that's still not fully passed that says districts for 2 years, fiscal year 23 and 24, will be paid on enrollment. That was sponsored by the House Ed Chair, Cloud, and we're working hard to get that passed, and we emphatically as a district support being paid on enrollment. And I won't go into the other things here, but to say that I'm projecting that with what we probably bring to you as administration at the end of fiscal year 23, we'd have about $14.5 million, or a fund balance still hovering in the 32%. Then I want to circle back to where I began. This is out of the audit report for fiscal year 21. And I want to say, it says, equally significant to the district's long-term financial planning, the ESSER dollars will facilitate increasing the general fund reserves. In turn, the buildup of the general fund reserves will ensure that our indefinite term supplemental levy and an annual fixed amount, which is $12,700,000, will allow our district to operate within this levy amount capacity for several fiscal cycles ahead. And this was the full intent, again, in August of 2019, to have our indefinite term supplemental levy, 1, offer financial stability, and to 2, build up our reserves so that we would not have to go back to the voters and operate within that levy capacity. And so projecting forward with the changes at the state level that we think are going to happen with the funding formula, and this still capacity to spend down our ESSER dollars, I would say clearly through fiscal year 27 that the district can operate, and that would then be a decade of levying the exact dollar amount of $12.7 million, which would then, in terms of the percentage of our general fund revenues, where our supplemental levy is fully 1/3 of our operational budget, it would probably be about 20%. So that brings the levy rate, already our levy rate dropped by 11.6% this year compared to last year. I would also say that this was the strategic planning of the board almost 3 years ago that has absolutely been catapulted by the infusion of ESSER dollars, and we have been very strategic within the letter of the federal law to supplant all allowed expenses. And that has really allowed us to build up our reserves. And that we've been able to do that without any, federal mandate to the change of the operations of Lake Ponderay Schools.
Yeah.
That concludes my prepared remarks. Any questions?
Well, I have a question, and it might be better directed to Superintendent, but I'll lob it to both of you. So we talk a lot about the federal dollars and the ESSER dollars. Superintendent Albertson, just for clarity, has the use of these federal dollars really imposed any mandates that have changed our planned practices as a school district?
No, all decisions are local control, and you as a board make all those decisions. So there are no federal mandates that you as a board have to put in place at all for receiving these federal dollars.
Okay,
So
that is for clarity's sake. Thank you for spelling that out, both for the public and for our board. Are there other questions that need clarification that you want to ask our CFO, Lisa, while she's right here? This was an extremely thorough report to us, and I know, like you said, it's a changing. He must have been up late last night doing this since it came in so late yesterday, and I really appreciate the time put in.
Great, thank you so much.
If I could just do one more point of clarification, and Lisa chime in here. And I think Lisa captured the message that we want the public to understand in that very last slide, is that we want to not go back to the voters for an increase in property tax, which then is like property tax relief for as many fiscal cycles as possible. And that has been, that's important to me, because that is the statement I made when I went in front of much of the community in different organizations when we were proposing to the community to make this permanent. And you know, people may say, well, you've got a lot of money, you could be doing this and this. The idea, though, is not to go back to the property tax, increase the property tax or increase the amount of the supplemental levy for as many physical cycles as possible. And we're not here to say what that is, but for as many out to the future, we do recognize the support that we do get from our community, and we so much appreciate that support from the community, but we will try as hard as we can to not go back and ask for more.
Yep.
Thank you, Lisa. That was
Thank you very much.
Very good stuff.
Yep. And we'll hear again in April. Yes. So, at this time, we have an opportunity for announcements, and I'll first open it up to Superintendent.
Sure. I don't see a representative from Sandpoint High School. There's Geraldine. I will leave Sandpoint High School to Geraldine, though, but can I still Academica? Or do you want that? So the academic decathlon team won the state championship this past weekend down in Marsing High School, and it's the 4th year in a row. And that team, led by Donna Stockman, they are such a dedicated group and put so much time and effort into that, and so very, very proud of that team. Also the winter sports teams have concluded in a lot of success from multiple of those teams, and
And Sandpoint High School, our National Merit semifinalists, made it to finalist category. So John Keegan is a National Merit finalist, and hopefully there'll be an article coming in the next week with him. So that's exciting news for Sandpoint High School.
Yep. Great. And let's just start right here, Carrie.
Yeah, I will just tell everyone that our performing choir won the Lionel Hampton Jazz Fest, and it was mostly virtual, but it was still exciting to bring them together and get that award. And then we're also getting ready to send a math count student to state as they rank one of the highest in our competitions in several years, so we're very excited for him to compete too. So
great. Cool. Anything else? Andrea, Casey, anything district?
I think we had a great professional development on Friday and student conferences, so it was exciting.
I just want to chime in and say thanks for last Friday. Elementary reported very high levels of families participating in student conferences, and one principal shared it was just such a positive day to have families in the building and kids leading conversations about their growth and their goals. So again, we appreciate the time and the support of our families.
Right. We had Jackie Crossingham, but she's gone.
I think she left.
Yeah. Is there any additional
spoke a lot
from
today.
our two schools? Well,
Yes.
absolutely. With that, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.